The air was heavy with smoke and fear. Nira sat inside a small metal cage, her hands chained, her green skin marked with bruises. Around her, the sounds of a busy alien market echoed shouts, laughter, and cruel deals. She was on a black market slave ship orbiting a dead planet. The lights were dim. The air smelled of oil, blood, and dust. Nira's heart beat fast. She had been captured a week ago, stolen from her home planet. She didn't even know where she was now. Her people were known for beauty, and that made them targets. Many rich beings paid high prices for slaves like her. And today, she was next. A tall, four-eyed alien stepped forward. His voice was loud and cold. Next. A rare piece, young, strong, from the Elleran species. Start the bidding. The cage opened. 2 guards pulled Nira forward and pushed her onto the auction stage. Bright lights hit her face. She couldn't see the crowd clearly, but she could hear them. Voices shouted numbers in many languages. Some laughed, some whistled. One voice called her exotic. Another one said, break her spirit, and she'd be perfect. Nira stood still, her eyes down. She had seen what happened to other slaves. Pain, chains, and slow death. She was ready to fight, or even die, before being broken. Then, one voice stood out, calm, deep, human. 10,000 credits. The room went quiet for a second. Everyone turned to look. A middle-aged human man had entered the room. He wore a brown coat and a tired look. His face had scars. His eyes were serious, not cruel. He didn't smile. He just waited. The auctioneer blinked. 10,000. From the human, the alien bidders looked at each other. Some laughed. One whispered, why would a human want her? But no one raised the bid. Sold. Just like that, it was over. Nira didn't know what to feel. Was this human worse than the others? Humans had a dark reputation in some parts of the galaxy. Some said they were violent. Some said they experimented on aliens. She was taken off stage and handed over to him. He looked at her only once and said, come, no chain, no threat. Just one word. They walked through the ship's halls. Nira looked for chances to run, but 2 guards followed them. She stayed quiet. The man's ship was small, old, and dusty. It looked like it had seen many years and many wars. Inside it was simple. No cages, no weapons. Just a chair, a bed, and quiet. He motioned her to sit, and then gave her a blanket. You must be cold. She didn't answer. She sat, stiff, ready for the worst. He opened a small container and placed food in front of her. It smelled warm and strange. You're safe here. I won't hurt you. She looked at the food, then at him. Was this a trick? Why was he being kind? Eat. Then you can rest. He turned away and started working on the ship's controls. Nira didn't eat. Not yet. She waited. After some time, the man walked to a small room and closed the door. She could hear soft music coming from inside. She looked around. No cameras, no locks, no chains. She pulled out a tiny metal piece from her sleeve. A sharp edge from the slave cage. She had hidden it in her clothes. If he tried anything, she would use it. But nothing happened. The ship moved smoothly through space. Quiet. Peaceful. Nira finally took a small bite of the food. Then another. Her hands stopped shaking. Later that night, she curled up on the bed and whispered to herself, he's waiting. He'll show his real face tomorrow. But part of her, a very small part, wondered, what if he's different? Not the cold silence of a prison, but the strange, kind, peaceful, soft, almost safe. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The bed beneath her was warm. A blanket covered her shoulders. And sunlight, real sunlight, shone through the ship's window. Somewhere birds sang, real birds. She hadn't heard those since her childhood. Then the memories came rushing back. Auction. The human. His quiet voice. You're safe here. She sat up fast, eyes wide, heart racing. Her hand went to the sharp metal piece she hid under her sleeve. It was still there. She looked around. No one. Just the small room, a chair, a table, a bowl of fruit. Clothes folded neatly on the side. Everything clean, simple, human. Suddenly, a soft knock at the door. "You can come out when you're ready," the human said from the other side. "There's no lock. You're not a prisoner. No lock?" Was he testing her? She stood up slowly and opened the door. David the human stood in the kitchen area, pouring tea into 2 cups. He wore the same coat, but now his sleeves were rolled up. There were scars on his arms, old ones. "You hungry?" he asked without turning. Nira didn't answer. She just stared. "I made breakfast. Some of it's human food, but I found Ellerin fruit at the port yesterday. Might be familiar." He placed a small red fruit on a plate and slid it across the table toward her. She didn't move. She was watching everything, his hands, the table, the door behind him. He noticed. "You don't trust me," he said simply. "I don't blame you." Nira's voice came out rough, dry. "What do you want from me?" David looked at her, eyes tired but calm. "Nothing." She didn't believe him. "You bought me." "Yes." "So why not use me like the others?" "Because I'm not like them." He drank his tea and sat down. Nira didn't sit. She stayed near the wall, sharp edge still hidden in her sleeve. The silence stretched. Then he said something unexpected. "I had a daughter. She was taken years ago by your kind." Nira stiffened. "Not you," he added quickly. "Not your fault. But they sold her, like you were sold." "What happened to her?" she asked before she could stop herself. David didn't answer. He just stared at his tea. The room grew heavy again. Then he stood up and walked to a door on the left, one she hadn't seen before. It was small and metallic, locked. "That room is off limits," he said softly. "It's the only rule here." He didn't explain why. "You're free to walk around, eat, rest. If you want to leave, I can drop you off on a safe colony." "So I'm free?" Nira said, half mocking. David looked at her. "Freedom isn't just about chains. It's also about fear. You're not free if you're still afraid." He left the room and didn't return for hours. Later that night, Nira moved quietly through the ship. She had memorized the halls. No cameras. No alarms. Only one room was locked. She stared at the metallic door. The light above it blinked slowly red. What was inside? Weapons? Secrets? Or something worse? She leaned closer. Click. She heard movement behind her. "I told you not to open that." David's voice was quiet, but colder than before. Nira turned slowly, blade in hand. He raised his hands. "I'm not your enemy, Nira. Then show me what's behind the door." David looked at the door for a long moment. Then simply said, "No, not yet." He walked away. She stood there, frozen, her hand still holding the blade. Ensign and Nira sat alone in the dark, looking at the fruit he gave her that morning. She hadn't eaten it. Not yet, but she hadn't thrown it away either. The ship moved through space like a ghost, silent, slow, and without a destination. Nira sat by the window, watching stars pass. She had never seen them this way before, not from a cage, not through bars, but with nothing stopping her. She wasn't locked in. She could walk around. She could breathe, but she didn't feel free. Something inside her was still in chains. Earlier that morning, she had placed the small blade on the table. Open, visible. A test. David had walked in, looked at it, then at her, and said nothing. He just poured tea, picked up his tools, and sat down to fix a broken drone in the corner. That silence said more than any words. Later, Nira walked past the locked door again. She didn't touch it this time. She just stared. She could feel something behind it. Pain, maybe his, maybe hers. She didn't know yet. Then she noticed something new, a photo. half hidden behind a book. She picked it up. A young girl, human, smiling, holding a flower, standing next to David, but David looked different, his eyes brighter, his shoulders less heavy. Her name was Leah, David said from behind. Nira turned, startled. She hadn't heard him come in. He sat down slowly, his face unreadable. My daughter, she loved flowers. Used to steal them from neighbors' gardens, said earth flowers were too proud. Nira didn't speak. The silence between them was soft now, not sharp. David continued. She was 16 when they took her. Pirate slavers, mostly alien, but some humans too. Doesn't matter who. What happened to her? Nira asked, barely a whisper. He looked down. I searched. Fought, burned everything in my way, but never found her. She might still be. She's gone. His voice broke for the first time. Then he said something Nira didn't expect. They said she begged them to let the others go. She tried to protect the younger ones. Just like you tried to protect that little girl at the auction. Nira froze. He had seen that? You stepped in front of her when the guard hit her, he said softly. I saw that. That's why I bought you. You bought me because I was kind? No, I bought you. Because no one protected Leah. I couldn't save her. But maybe I can give you what she never had. That night rain fell on the ship's rooftop. Artificial rain, generated by the orbit station's weather ring. Nira stood outside, feeling drops on her skin. Cold, real. She looked up. She remembered playing in the rain on her homeworld. Before it was taken. Before everything was stolen. Then she heard music. Soft, human, a piano, coming from inside. She followed the sound. David sat in front of a small music box. It played automatically. Keys moving on their own. She used to play this, he said. He didn't cry, not this time. But his hands trembled. Nira sat beside him, quietly. For the first time, she didn't feel the need to hold the blade. Her voice was soft, childlike. My sister used to sing, when we were hiding. Her voice made the caves feel like home. David looked at her. What happened to her? She was taken. I don't know where. They sat there, two broken souls in silence, sharing something wordless. Last Nira walked back to her room. She picked up the fruit from yesterday. She took a bite. It was sweet. A little strange. But warm. She smiled just a little. It started with a shadow. Not a sound. Not an alarm. Just a shape reflected in the window of the ship as Nira made tea. She turned quickly. No one was there. Or so she thought. 2 hours earlier David had gone to the local outpost for fuel and food. The station orbited a blue gas giant, far from any major trade route. Quiet. Safe. Nira stayed behind, alone. For the first time, she walked the ship slowly, touching things she had avoided before. His books, his tools, his plants. She even stood in front of the locked room again. This time, she didn't feel fear, just curiosity. One day, she whispered to it, you'll tell me what's behind there. Then the knock came, not on the main door, but from outside. She looked through the VIEWPORT. And her blood went cold. Two beings stood outside the ship, armored, tall, alien, not from this station. Not locals. One of them had a brand on his shoulder, the Kofurt. Same brand her old master used. A red spiral. They had found her. Now the ship's entry door buzzed. A calm voice echoed through the speaker. Open the door. We just want to talk. She stepped back. Her hand shook. She grabbed the small blade again. Then, footsteps. But not from outside. From behind her. David had returned without making a sound. He saw her, then looked at the door. His face turned to stone. Stay behind me, he said quietly. She nodded. He opened the door. The two visitors stepped in slowly. Their armor was dusty, but their eyes were sharp. One smiled, cold and fake. Ah, the human who buys lost things. David didn't smile. She's mine. I paid at the legal auction. You saw the records. The second alien stepped forward. She belongs to our employer. You bought stolen property. David's voice didn't rise, but something changed in it. A chill. No, I bought a person. And she's not property. The first alien laughed, so noble. Typical human guilt. They looked at Nira. Come, if you behave, you won't be punished. She didn't move. David spoke again, slower this time. She's not going anywhere. You think you can protect her? David's hand was already on his side. Not a weapon, but a small black device. Try me. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the alien smiled again. But this time, there was something behind it, a warning. This isn't over, human. They turned and left. Later that night, Nira stood in David's room. Why did you do that? She asked. Because I gave my word. You don't even know me. I didn't know Leah either. Not really. Not who she became. He looked out the window. I wasn't there to protect her, but I'm here now. Nira looked down. Her voice cracked. They'll come back. Let them. Then he handed her something small, a thin silver ring with a tiny green light. What is it? She asked. A signal beacon. If you ever run, turn it on. I'll find you. She stared at it. Why? Are you doing this? He smiled, just barely. Because sometimes kindness is the loudest rebellion. Final Nira sat in her room, looking at the beacon in her palm. She could leave. She could run. But for the first time in her life, she didn't want to. It began with a voice, faint, familiar, calling her name from the darkness. Double quotes Nira, run. She turned, running through a smoky jungle, feet bare, heart racing. Behind her, fire, screams, a ship rising into the sky, her sister pounding on the glass from inside. I'll find you. Nira shouted, but her voice didn't reach. Her legs wouldn't move. The world began to fall apart. She woke up gasping. Sweat covered her skin. Her chest rose and fell like a drum. Another dream. No, not a dream, a memory. She sat up in bed, breathing hard. The small silver beacon David gave her lay by the pillow, blinking faint green. Safe. But inside, she didn't feel safe. Later that morning, David was outside, fixing part of the ship's hull. The sky was orange, the trees nearby tall and soft, like cotton. A peaceful world. Nira watched him from the doorway. She noticed the way he limped slightly. Old injury, maybe from war. The way he grunted when he stood, like he was fighting gravity itself. She stepped out quietly. You dream about her? She asked. David looked up, surprised. All the time, he replied. Does it ever stop hurting? He thought for a long moment. No, but it becomes quieter. Like a scar that stops bleeding. Nira nodded slowly. I saw my sister last night, she said, voice soft. In the dream. The day she was taken. David wiped sweat from his brow. You want to tell me about her? Not yet, Nira said. Then, as if her hands moved on their own, she picked up a small tool and helped him hold a panel steady. It was the first time they worked together, silently. Side by side. Flashbacks came more often, now sometimes while eating. Sometimes in the quiet of the ship. Once, she heard music again, from the same old box. It triggered a memory. Her sister humming the same notes while they hid inside a cave. Scared and hungry. She started humming it without realizing. David looked up, eyes wide. That song. You know it? She stopped. Embarrassed. My sister sang it. I thought it was ours. David walked over to a drawer and pulled out a dusty book. This was Leah's music notebook, he said. Your sister must have heard it somewhere. Or maybe. He didn't finish the thought. They stared at the book in silence. 2 families, 2 daughters, 2 lives shattered by the same system. Later that night, stars were brighter than usual. David lit a small fire outside the ship. Nira sat nearby, her eyes on the flames. Tell me, she asked, What did you think I'd do when you bought me? Honestly? He said, I thought you'd kill me in my sleep. She laughed a dry, short sound. Her first real laugh. I almost did, she admitted. I know. They both smiled. And for a few seconds, the world felt light. Then David became serious again. They're not done, those slavers. They'll be back. I know, she said. We need to prepare. I want to fight, she said suddenly. I don't want to run anymore. David nodded. Then we'll fight. Final Senanira walked back to her room. She looked in the mirror, not at her scars, but at her eyes. For the first time, she didn't see a slave. She saw someone becoming whole again. It started with a flower, a small blue one, growing from a crack in the old metal ship wall. Nira had never seen it before. She knelt beside it, touched its petals softly. You planted this? She asked. David, sitting nearby with his tea, nodded. I found the seed in an old earth packet. Didn't think it would survive here. She smiled faintly. It did, he smiled back. Like you. That morning was quiet, peaceful, the kind of morning people don't realize they'll miss until it's already gone. Then came the smoke, faint. At first, the kind you ignore. But it grew, sharp, thick, wrong. David dropped his tea. Stay here, he said, grabbing a small pistol and running toward the trees. Nira didn't listen. She followed. The forest was burning, not from accident, from weapons. Plasma scorch marks. Deep, deliberate. And above the smoke, a dark ship hovered black. Silent, shaped like a hunter's blade. They had come. Slavers. Her old master stepped through the trees. Tall, armor polished, eyes cold. You thought you could hide? He said. You thought one broken human could protect you. David raised his weapon. She's not going with you. The master laughed. She was never yours to keep. Then, 3 things happened at once. The slaver guards surrounded them. David fired. And Nira ran. But not away from them, toward David. The fight was brutal. David fought like a man with nothing left to lose. One shot hit his shoulder. Another grazed his leg. He fell, but not before activating something on his wrist. A hidden signal, a call, a last resort. Nira screamed and threw herself at one of the guards. She wasn't strong, but she was fast. Desperate, she bit, scratched, kicked. Then hands grabbed her, pulled her down, chained her again. Her old master leaned close. You forgot what pain feels like. Let me remind you. He lifted a shock stick, but stopped. David stood again, bloodied, barely upright. You want pain? He whispered. Then he pressed the second button on his wrist. The ship exploded. Not theirs, the slaver ship. The engines burst into flames. Fire lit the sky. The blast shook the ground. Chaos followed. Screams, running, slavers scattering. Nira used the moment. She grabbed the dropped shock stick and struck the guard beside her. Then another. David fell again hard, not moving. David! She screamed, reaching him. Final scene. They lay on the ground. Fire on them. The small blue flower burning behind them. David looked at her, eyes glassy. Told you. We'd fight. You can't leave me, she whispered, holding his hand tight. He smiled weakly. Then stay. Lights appeared above. Ships descending, rescue ships. The beacon had worked. Fade out as the rescue medics lifted David. Nira stood beside him, chains broken, eyes burning. Not a slave, a survivor. The first thing Nira noticed was the light. Not a weapon's flash. Not fire, but soft white light, pouring through a round window. She blinked slowly, unsure where she was. The bed was soft. Sheets clean. The air smelled of antiseptic, not smoke. Then dash sound. Rhythmic, gentle, beep, beep. David's heartbeat. She turned her head. He lay beside her in the recovery pod, chest rising and falling. A healing bandage covered his side. His hand twitched. Alive. A breath left her chest she didn't know she'd been holding. You came back, she whispered. 1 week later, the outpost medics had offered her clothes, a bed, food, even therapy, but Nira spent most of her time walking the gardens outside the facility, silent, watching the sky. No chains on her ankles, no brand on her neck, and still, the question circled inside her. If I'm free now, who am I? She wasn't sure how to live in a world where no one owned her. David recovered slowly. He didn't talk much at first. Then, one evening, as they watched the sunset from a quiet bench, he spoke. I had a dream last night. About her? Nira asked. No, about you. He turned to look at her, eyes soft but clear. You weren't afraid in it. You were flying, alone, smiling. That's not me, Nira said. Not yet, he replied. Later that night, Nira stood outside his room, holding something. The silver beacon, still blinking, still active. You can turn it off now, David said, leaning in the doorway. She looked down at it. I'm afraid if I do, I lose the last piece of you. You won't. He stepped forward, placed something small in her hand. A seed. Found it in the wreckage. Same kind as the flower that bloomed on the ship. She held it tightly. Final scene. Weeks passed. David chose to stay at the outpost, helping build a school for rescued children. Nira chose something else. She boarded a shuttle heading toward the outer colonies, not running, but seeking. As the shuttle rose through the clouds, she opened her hand. The seed rested in her palm. Not a weapon, not a chain, just a beginning. Her voice calm, clear-spoken in the quiet cabin. My name is Nira. I was a slave. Now I'm free. And I will never forget the human who taught me that kindness is its own kind of rebellion. Fade to black. Text on screen. In a galaxy where pain was power, one act of grace lit a fire that couldn't be chained.